Occasionally, one or two of the other issues pop up, but most frequently it is professionalism. And some of it is that they just don't learn that in their classes. We are trying to hit it a lot harder as we go through and stressing those things. But professionalism is really one of the things that we want to see going on as they progress through the program. So the dispositions, follow them throughout. Once they decide that they're going to be a teacher or go through the educator licensure process, the dispositions actually follow them, okay? So 201 is, we talked about, as the first clinical course. So if I have a student, which I have, who, for example, doesn't respond to an email by the date requested, I will write a disposition for them in professionalism. Because you need to, I feel the need, if they're not responding to my email right now over something silly like confirm your placement, they need to understand that that's not meeting the expectations of the program. So what will happen then is when I file that disposition for professionalism and not responding to emails, I then send it to the department. So I would say, Dr. Miller, I've got so-and-so who hasn't responded to the email to confirm their placement yet. And so Dr. Miller and I both send emails to this student or call them and say, you need to take care of this right away. And what happens is it goes in their file. They're kind of cumulative. So if they get a second for the same offense, then it becomes a mediation process. And if they get a third, most likely they're being recommended for dismissal from the educator licensure program. Because we do take this seriously. We don't want it to be a burden for you. And my philosophy is, and I know that is shared by a lot of the other people in the program, there will be students who want to be teachers who shouldn't be teachers. And so we want to kind of help them before it's too late to find a different career path. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. If you have a student teacher, it's not always punishment to give them a disposition. Sometimes you're doing them the greatest favor that anybody can do, even though it's hard. So just keep that in mind. And if you're not sure whether or not you should write a disposition, just ask. You can say, hey, this happened, I'm not sure. Probably 99% of the time we'll say yes, write one. Or we can write one for you. I do that a lot. The teachers just send me, this is what happened, and I say I'll take care of the disposition for you. You don't necessarily need to meet with the student about that. That really goes back on the advisor for that student. So if you say, Bobby keeps coming in late for his student teaching, I write the disposition, the advisor will then meet with that student and say, this happens again, you're going to be done with the placement. Does that make sense? But it does go through. And it's not just their education coursework. So if we have a student who's in biology, whatever, some number, and the professor, biology 420, is that a cut? Because you're right there. I don't know. History, okay. Well, yes. So in some course, but the professor knows that that student is in the educator licensure, they can also write a disposition. So it's kind of a tracking throughout all the program that we can kind of keep track and make sure that students are meeting our expectations, which I hope helps kind of when you think about the process. Yes, Dr. Miller.
By the way, it's okay because I have a lot of experience in this.
Yeah. Being rid of yourself? No, forget. But it doesn't, I will say, I do a lot of writing them for 201, as I'm sure Ms. Maley will as well. Because being a teacher and administrator, I want to produce quality candidates, and I want them to know ahead of time we're serious about it. It's just like when I made the transition to the university, I said to everyone, it's amazing to me how much the college students are like middle school students. And it's mind-boggling. The ones who should care about the dispositions don't, and the ones who don't need to worry about it, really panic about it. We had one with Dr. Miller. I said, the student hasn't responded to my emails. He's like, oh, I know the student, I'll get in touch with them. So she called me like 3 times in one day. I didn't get the email, I'm so sorry. But it's fine. Then she calls me back, but I got the disposition, what does that mean? It's just kind of a warning, we're okay. Calls me back, but I really don't want one. Well, check your email and you'll be fine. It's good. We're good to go.
Kids not getting called between.
Yeah, so, and then we have students, we still haven't heard from despite 2 dispositions. But, usually those kind of students realize this is probably not for me. A disposition does not automatically dismiss a student from the program. So when you're thinking about it, I know sometimes teachers, you feel like you want to encourage. That's why you're a teacher. You want to encourage students. However, I want you to remember, these are not really students anymore. They're becoming adults. Just like your students, they come into the programs with really different backgrounds and family structures and things that they've learned. I mean, we talk about pushing in your chairs when you get up to these students. We talk about putting your names on your papers to these students. I mean, but it's true. And you don't know what kind of school they've been in. We are really fortunate in the Northern Illinois area, I think, for the education that we provide. But we have students who come from Chicago. We have students who come from rougher districts, and we have and who need help with some of these basic things. So keep that in mind as well. That doesn't mean they're a lost cause, and it doesn't mean they can't be an amazing teacher, but some of them may need help with just the basics of professional dress and things like that. We hopefully will get them taken care of before they come to you. And again, yes, Ms. Maynard.
Yes, I just wanted to add that part of my dispositions breakout, I actually have included the professionalism presentation we give them to start their clinical experience, so people are interested to see what exactly it is we tell them. I'll be going over that in the presentation.
Yeah, in 201 we do talk about it extensively, what it means to be a professional. That doesn't mean they always apply it to themselves, but we try. We really are trying, and we do, say it over and over and over again. So hopefully they're getting that message. The ultimate goal is to create somebody you would want to work with. And so if you have a candidate who is not someone you want to work with, even as you recognize that they're in process, and I'm talking 201, 301, student teaching, if it's someone you're like, I don't know that this would be a good coworker, we need help to make this candidate into somebody you would want to work with. We want everybody to be employable when they come out. And we're hoping by the time they get to the student teaching, our dispositions process has taken care of some of those who maybe shouldn't be in education. And now we're going to be focusing on fine-tuning those skills for those students who we want to work with you. So if you're thinking about a candidate and thinking, I'm not sure, A, this person will get a job, or B, that this person is someone I would want to work with, please help us by communicating that and saying, as a teacher, and I know, I walk into 201 and there's somebody in the room that can attest to this. I said, this person will never be a teacher. This person will never be successful. I'm sorry. I've known this person, and it's just not going to happen. But it's not always dispositional offenses either. So we need to know those things as well. If you say this candidate is struggling with whatever, if we can help that candidate all along the process and to help them become stronger, that's what we really want to do. Yes.
What I wanted to add was the importance of documenting it, because when you meet your student teacher, and certainly as they progress with you, as Melanie said, there'll be things that are red flags, and you're like, man, they just don't have it. But they have met every academic milestone, and so it's really hard to say, Jenny, you're doing great in your academics, but my goodness, I don't want you teaching my children. We legally can't do that, and so we really need to have some help documenting, because you're the people on the front line who see it and can then put it in writing, so then we can start those difficult conversations. And they are brutal conversations for me to say, Kristen, I know that this is your dream, and I'm going to be the dream crusher right here and say, we need to figure out a different career path. And it's crushing, but we need to have that documentation and that help. And I think the other thing that it reminds me of is that we do very well in our schools, and I think in the institution, in differentiating our experiences for students and meet them where they come in, until we get to student teaching. And then we have this set of expectations that it may be that Kristen is in a very different place than Jenny is, and we have to be able to, as Melanie said, be sure that we are creating positive co-workers who will positively impact the learning of students. And it's such this awesome responsibility, but we have to document if they are not going to make it. So the earlier we have a disposition, the more that we can track. And so I would echo it doesn't automatically mean a dismissal from the program. It may mean a detour, it may mean a redirection, but it means that we are taking care of the student the way they need to be.
And even if your documentation is, on August 27th, had a conversation about appropriate dress, even if it's just something little, the more documentation, just like with your students, the more you have, the better we are able to say, you have been addressed about your professional dress 7 times. We need to fix this or you're done. But if you have a student who goes along throughout the entire 201, 301, 401 student teaching with no dispositions, and we graduate that student, and we all know the student probably is going to not get a job, that's a huge disservice to the students. So we really want to be able to remediate the problems where we can. But again, just like with your students, we need to have documentation. So if you're confused or you're not sure, you can always call the advisors, talk to the university supervisors, talk to Kate. She's really excellent at those difficult conversations. Yes, I pass them all off to her because she's really great at it. Okay, on your tables, there are little red cards. They're paper clipped together. And what we're going to ask you to do with those cards is to take a look at them as a group. Decide among those cards which is the most egregious and which is the least egregious. So which one would you say is the absolute worst offense? They're all offensive in some way, shape, or form. Okay? But which of your group is the very worst and which one is the least worst? Okay? What I'm looking for is for you to share with us what do you think is the worst of the group and which is the least worst of the group, which I know is not very grammatically correct, but so the worst and the least worst, and kind of share with us your reasoning why, because I think it would be interesting to hear if there are differences, what was the thought process behind. Does anybody want to volunteer to go first? Yes, please.
Okay, so we kind of put them into 3 groups, so we have several in the worst, but I guess me personally, I would say that the teacher candidate is unwilling to try new ideas or methods, because essentially that's what teaching is all about. And if that's the attitude that he or she has coming into it when you're supposed to be the most open and receptive, then it's really only just setting that person up for failure in the long run. So that's what we said is our worst. And the not so bad, maybe the candidate is afraid to make moves without asking for permission, because that's just kind of a conversation. And once you become, or they become more comfortable with you, that feeling should be minimized a little bit. So that was just one we had on that.
Sure. Okay. Next.
We put tardy as the number 1 most egregious.
Okay, tardy was the worst because.
Well, it's just kind of disrespectful to everything. You can't show up on time. What else? What can you do?
And potential for nobody being in your classroom to resource
Right. Okay.
I also feel like the tardy one is important, even if, because if they choose not to go into the teaching field, you can't be late to work every day. That's one that, whether you're a teacher or not a teacher, that needs to be followed.
Very true. Okay, what was your least worst?
Afraid to contact parents, because we felt that was something that's just going to be easier and easier as you go through. The more times you do it, you hold their hand with it. When you help them with contact first couple of times, or a dozen times if you have to, and eventually that means something.
Great, thank you. Okay.
We went back and forth kind of with the tardy stuff and everything, and we ended up putting describing the gossiping in the faculty lounge as the most egregious offense because it's a character issue. There's some really great people who run late, but it's really tough to teach somebody to be a better person. So, and yeah, to not suck up. That's, I mean, it demonstrates massive insecurity, total tackiness, and just mean-spirited. I mean, that's not the kind of person I would be teaching
You can't go
any child.
further with your student teaching because nobody will want to collaborate with you. No one's going to want to help you out with some of the petty things that we're talking about too. You kind of just bad place in the get-go. And your least worst? Hygiene.
Well, we were talking in general. Yeah, we said that like the body, hygiene thing is something that HHH is very good.
Great. Okay. Next.
We were kind of right on with them. Our top two were the gossiping in the faculty lounge was our top one. Second one was the tardy. Jim kind of shared that same type of thing. If you have personality issues, those are big ones, character issues, as opposed to the things that can be learned going down. So we had a bunch of them at the bottom, but they were all, our lowest one was the personal tasks, but it was all of those things, the odor, the clothing. The one group had the unwilling to try new methods. We kind of put that right after those first three that we felt were more character personality issues that are much more difficult.
We were trying to define what unwilling meant. Is it unwilling because you're fearful, or is it unwilling because you are just, this is my way and I'm only going to do it that way? So it would really depend on what unwilling meant.
Okay. Do I go?
Yeah, sure. We had tardies first because that's a thing that's going to get you fired from every job. It's always on the phone. Gossip was second as well. And then we had hygiene last as well because that's a quick conversation and more so.
Yep. Okay.
At our table, the ones that we deemed as the worst were a lot of the things people were saying. Just to highlight one of them, the social media profile, just because once, we know by now if it's there, if it's on the internet, once you've seen it there, it doesn't go away. The ones that I don't think this one's been said yet. We said that your teacher candidate is afraid to make a move without asking for your permission. We thought that was totally coachable. In fact, when I think about it, it's kind of, that might make you even reflect how you're doing as a cooperating teacher. Have you created an atmosphere where you made that teacher feel like they can make their own decisions and make them, because I've seen it where you have a cooperating teacher in your building who kind of wants to micromanage every single, there is a certain amount of letting go that needs to take place. So we didn't see that as maybe disposition, maybe just a conversation.
Okay, the next thing I want you to do with these cards right now is to take your most egregious, your worst of the worst, and talk at your table, how would you document that behavior? So what we're going to try to do is come up with some skills for everyone, some resources for everyone right now. The worst of the worst, how would you document that? And I want you to imagine it happens one time. It happens multiple times. Like, what are the steps that you would take to document that behavior?